find my glasses. Hello. Hi, please sit down. We're going to be bringing some more chairs in the back. So if you don't have a chair yet, maybe you can wait in the back and until the chair arrives, please. Thanks. All right. Let's close the door. Hi. Muraho Nitwa Ursi van der Herten. Nishimiye Kubana Namwe Hano Ichikali. Was that understandable? That's the best I can do. All right, I'm going to shift to English now. So for those of you that do not know me yet, so my name is Ursi. I'm very glad to be here and to represent Esade here in Kigali today for the first time, and hopefully many more times to come. So I'm responsible for recruiting students from the African continent for the Esade Masters MBA and Executive MBA programs. So this event would not have been possible with the collaboration of many people. So first of all, my colleagues at Esade Business School. So Davide Rovira, who's here with us, he's going to be moderating the session today. And then also Susanna, who's also working at eWorks at Esade. I think she's outside, but she's going to join us very, very soon. And so David and Susanna are here this week because they're leading a boot camp, which is by BeEntrepreneurs. So I think that David will tell you a bit more about that later on. And then from Esade, we have more representation here. So we have Daniel, who's sitting there. Daniel is currently doing the Executive MBA at Esade, the hybrid format. So he came all the way from Uganda to be here with us today. He's going to be part of the panel. And then online, we have our professor, Giulio Toscani. He's a specialist in digital strategy. And he couldn't be here with us today. I don't know where he is this week. He will tell us soon. But he knows Rwanda very well. He's been here a couple of times, but also visiting professor at ALU. So I'm also very grateful, and I want to say thank you to our collaborators at African Leadership University, because we had a very warm welcome here, and I'm happy that they also helped us to organize this event. So thank you, Momar Dieng, who's the Dean of the Business School at ALU. And I also want to thank the other collaborators at ALU that that have helped us and that made it also possible for Esade, for me to visit, and for Davide to visit the campus and also talk to students and tell them about the school. And then, of course, Cassie, who's here with us, she's also going to be part of the panel and representing ALU as one of the speakers. I think we have a lot of synergies between Esade and ALU because we both have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit. So there are a lot of synergies. So yeah, thank you for that. And then also I would say one reason why Esade is here is because we want to establish relations in Rwanda, right? So first of all, because we see that there is an amazing pool of talent, young talent, executive talent, and also because of the growth of the country. So happy to be here, and I think I'm gonna give the microphone to Davide now. Just only one more thing. In case you are interested in receiving more information on Esade, on the programs, I'm going to be around afterwards. We have organized a networking. And also I'm going to be around tomorrow and on Friday. So if you would like to book like a personal assessment session with me, please come to me after the event during the networking, and then we can look into my schedule. Davide.
Thanks. Thanks, Ursi, first of all, and thanks everyone for coming. I wasn't as brave, so I'm not gonna try myself in any other language than English for tonight, but next time I'll promise I will try as well. So I'll be your main host tonight for the panel, and to me it's a very, very, very special event because I'm here basically with two different hats. As Ursi was mentioning, my let's say main primary job is to run the acceleration and incubation activities for startups at Esade Business School, together with me, as well as mentioned my colleague Susanna Ercolani, who you probably met at the check-in. And so that's what we do on a daily basis. I'm also an entrepreneurship lecturer, and my personal driver and passion is to support entrepreneurs into building new ventures that can help little by little making the world a little bit of a better place. But also, as mentioned, I'm here with another hat. And so I'm a volunteer for an association. You've seen basically all the people with a t-shirt, except myself, because I felt I needed to dress up a little bit more for the panel. Tonight, we're all volunteers for an Italian NGO that's called BeEntrepreneurs, who runs a program in East Africa in general called Startup Africa. And what we do is running boot camps for entrepreneurs that have high growth, high impact ventures, trying to provide our own expertise. So all volunteers are professionals working in different areas of innovation and entrepreneurship. And we try to use what we know to help others doing the same things. We've been existing since 2017, running bootcamps in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and now Rwanda for the very first time. And I can tell you, so far, it's been a very, very nice experience. So I'm very happy to be here. We've kind of representing both institutions. We work together to put this event together. But of course, Ursi helped a lot as well in finding the speakers. We have an amazing panel. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what's going to happen tonight, we have a panel, as mentioned. Ursi already introduced the panelists. They're going to say a little bit more about themselves in a moment. 3-person here physically, Giulio, unfortunately, online. But the idea is we're going to try to shed a little bit of light with the different profiles and expertise of all the panelists about what it's like to be an entrepreneur or to run new ventures in this area, so in Rwanda, but also in East Africa, and what it's like to do that in other places like Europe. What are the similarities? What are the differences? What can we all learn from each other, from different ecosystems, and how they work? It's very ambitious, so we're going to just do a little bit of that. The plan is to go about an hour of conversation, including Q&A. So if you have questions, save those questions. We give everyone an opportunity to ask questions towards the end. After that, we will have networking just right outside the door. We have some drinks, some light food as well. So there will be an opportunity to ask more questions, to interact, to network. Final general recommendation from my side, anytime you come to this sort of events, do leverage as well the last part, right? The networking after. This is where you meet people. This is where things happen. I will say now, with no further ado, I would invite all the panelists, please, on stage, and we can start. But as well, thanks all to the public for coming here tonight. Thank you. I think no particular order, just pick a chair. I think there is one mic there, right? And then I'm going to be passing this one. Unless we find another one. Anyway, in the meantime, we'll figure it out. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction. So you heard already a little bit about our panelists. I'm going to now go and ask all of you, Giulio, yourself included, to give a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, what are you currently doing, what drives you, couple of minutes, and then we move forward. I have as well some slight change of plans, but I'll tell about later.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cassie Mugawa Kaiganwa. I am, as mentioned on the poster and other invites, I'm an ALU alumni. I just graduated about 2 weeks ago from ALU. I did my Thank you. Thank you. I did my bachelor's in international business and trade, and I'm very happy to be here. What I do is a couple of things. My background is in communication. I've done communication for an organization called I Debate Rwanda, but currently I'm doing it for an agency I've been doing that for about 3 years. And my main focus is also a business that I started with my friends when we were still at ALU in 2020. The business is called Ikamba Apparel. It's a clothing line. I'm currently wearing it today. If you like it, talk to me after the networking session. So the business, we started it with passion, and it was basically something that we wanted to try to have a brand that's new in Rwanda, that does made in Rwanda clothes, but at the same time grow and become bigger and become an African brand, at the same time impacting our communities. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Momar Dieng, and I am the Dean of the School of Business at the African Leadership University. I am originally from Senegal, and I'm a mathematician by training. So I started my life as a math professor in the US, and then quickly got a taste for entrepreneurship. Actually, I started an IT company when I was still a graduate student back in the US, leveraging my love of programming and knowledge of statistics and data science at the time, which was emerging as a booming field. And so I'm still in love with data science and with IT, so still an entrepreneur in my free time, whatever free time I can get, but also continue to lecture in data science in Rwanda, in Africa, around the world. And I've also had the opportunity to work for a few governments, mostly on the continent, my own in Senegal, and then others, such as in Liberia. So that has given me an insight on both sides of the equation, you know, how public sector works, what are the opportunities and challenges there, and also how entrepreneurship on the continent has evolved the past 10, 15 years. I'm very happy to be at ALU. I think we have a very strong representation. So all doers of hard things wave. Happy to see you, and look forward to the conversation.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel, and I'm the CEO of Spouts International. We're a high growth scaling SME throughout all of sub-Saharan Africa. I'm an entrepreneur, and I actually run two companies. One, the one that I just mentioned in Spouts, but then I also run a smaller startup in Uganda. That's not really scaling geographically, but it is kind of a passion project where we've created a social hub that could connect work. The motto is work, eat, and connect, but it's a place where you can connect all entrepreneurs, all like-minded professionals and individuals in creating a sustainable future and creating sustainable impact. I'm also an Esade Executive MBA student, class of 2024. Been a student there for about 1 year now, and it's been very helpful for me in my journey as an entrepreneur in scaling solutions and companies throughout all of Africa. Maybe I can just rewind a little bit. As you could tell from my accents, I have an American accent. Born in New York, and then went to school in Ohio, and then worked in Chicago for about 7-8 years before transitioning to Uganda, where I've been living for about the past 7-8 years now. And the reason for this switch was largely because I wanted to get more involved in impact, especially from at the ground level, right? Just really seeing the decisions that you make, seeing the impact directly on the ground. That was something that I was very passionate about. And it really just took a 5-minute conversation with some of the co-founders that were transitioning out for me to pack my bags and move to Uganda, where I've been since. Currently, our operations with Spouts is in Uganda and in Rwanda, and soon to be Kenya. And I travel quite a lot between Kampala, Kigali, and Nairobi. So looking forward to the conversation today and getting to know each of you guys more.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, so definitely, last but not least, Giulio.
Hi, I'm Giulio. I'm Italian, I'm a professor at Esade, but also I'm a visiting professor at the ALU. I live in Barcelona. That is behind me. Actually, Esade is just one block here down. I'm sorry I could not be there, but just came back from Iran, and then I have to go very quickly to China and New Zealand. So today is a really busy day for me, and actually we'll have to leave you very soon because unfortunately I only had 1 hour packed. I'm a professor of digital business and strategy at Esade. I have a PhD from Stockholm, and I have 2 companies, one in Singapore, which is blockchain for the maritime industry, and here one in Barcelona. I'm an investor for a food company. I'm really glad to be with you. I was last year there. Sorry not to be here there.
Thank you very much as well, to Giulio, for taking the time and joining us. We know you have a very, very, very packed schedule. And because of that, this is the slight change of plans I was mentioning. We're gonna, so we discussed a little bit before the event what we're gonna do. And as everything in the entrepreneurship world, you need to adapt to situations. So we're gonna do exactly that and change a little bit the plan we had in mind. And we're gonna start talking with you directly, Giulio, to make the best use of your time. And then we're gonna continue here with the panel in present. So sorry about the disruption. First question I have for you is, basically, you mentioned this already briefly. You work a lot on innovation, digital transformation, and as well on AI. And so because you travel a lot, you have these different experiences and companies, an international, let's say, vantage viewpoint. What I would like to hear from you is, if you think about East Africa, where do you see the biggest potential for AI-based projects?
So, of course,
tough question to start with, but
yeah. So, of course, Kenya is within one of the top African players in AI, together with Egypt, with Tunisia, and Nigeria and South Africa. Why is that? Actually, because there is a government plan. There is a government plan, as there is also in Rwanda, but the one who is in Kenya has been more impactful. So what we need when we talk about the situation is that AI and data are very, very complex endeavor. If we think about Silicon Valley started not just because of entrepreneurship, but also because it was a strong infrastructure of bandwidth. And so this is what is necessary also in Africa. And actually it's happening. The idea of having some kind of support from the government in Kenya, and now what has been happening in Rwanda, especially focusing on education, on the healthcare, but also to fight corruption, is one of the very, very great start to have this. What is next? Of course, when we talk about AI, we know that the food of AI is data, and data need to be kind of useful. We are talking about an ecosystem. We are talking about an ecosystem where the food has to be great for everyone. No one has to overcome the others so that there is this balance, but also must be a kind of healthy food for everyone. And when we talk about the healthy food, we need to talk about this quality of the data. For example, in Rwanda, you have Zipline. Zipline is collecting lots of data about some think around healthcare, about the health logistic and other things. So that's why Zipline now is also advancing and taking care of other initiatives around the health sector. And this is one of the best things. But of course, Zipline cannot work by herself. It needs to have the support of the government. It needs to have this, to create this ecosystem with other companies that will be sponsored by the government. And that is when we need so much support. And Rwanda also is starting to get important in that.
Okay, very interesting, and as well, I would say actionable insights. Maybe one general comment, which I forgot to mention when we started, is let's try as much as possible to run this panel as a conversation, right? So I do have a few questions for all of you, but feel free to jump in at any time, right? So if you want to add on something to the question I asked or to the answer somebody gave, I mean, just take the mic, jump in, turn it into a conversation. We don't have to run through the whole list, but rather make it into something where the content is interesting. So if you have any comments on this, if you want to jump on anything, just let me know. Else I'll move forward to different questions. Good. Let's see, Giulio, also leveraging the fact that you're here, I'm going to go for a little bit of I'm asking you all the tough questions, but again, it's due to the timing here. So based again on your international experience, is if you think about digital strategy, right? Where do you see differences between what's happening here in East Africa and what's happening in Europe? And based on that, what insights could each area borrow from the other to increase competitiveness in the global market?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Davide. So, of course, here we have a longer history. We have an ecosystem that started before. And so that is an advantage because the structure is there. But one of the data problem we are having now is the uniformity. It's how we are making this data flow and how we are working all together and the kind of technology. So one of the great advantage that has now East Africa is that there is a strong will in starting, and there is a great infrastructure. So we're talking about road, nothing fancy, but it's functioning really, really well. So when we think about this, what is happening now, for example, led by some better company like Zipline that already have been advancing, there is a big occasion to start something from scratch. That means that everything can be started on the same standards. And this will allow in the future to have a better conversation within this ecosystem. So this is one of the great advantages that all Africa has. And Rwanda, that is going really fast, has more. Because when we think about the future, we consider that the world is getting more complex and technology will get more complex. So if we start with the right standards, think about internet, think about the IP, the internet protocol that allowed this consensus between all the stakeholders. This is something that now Africa has a chance, especially East Africa and especially Rwanda. So I think that this would be one of the sales points to go. Then, of course, government support, entrepreneurship, education, and financing.
Wonderful. As we still have a few minutes, I guess, of your time, and I like to bring the insights you gave us and try to expand on those a little bit. So what we see by looking at trends, but I've also, even in my very, very limited personal experience here, seen in the last years, is that the overall ecosystem over here is booming. Every year we see more entrepreneurs, more investments coming in, more activity in Rwanda, but as well in general in East Africa. So this is a question from everyone, right? You pointed out a few areas that are important and are core in terms of making the most out of this going forward in the future. But question I have, and this is again open to everyone, is where do you see that, which areas do you think are the most promising in terms of development of new ventures in this area in the next years? And feel free to, I mean, anyone, Cassie, if you want to start. One more, go ahead.
Thank you. Ladies first. So I think for me, when I think about the businesses that have promises and potential in the next years, I want to think about agribusiness, businesses in agriculture. And the reason is because, at least for Rwanda in particular, it's a really key sector here. A lot of people are employed there, and also it's something we cannot avoid. We cannot run away from it because it's something that it's there, it's a fact. And so, and also for East Africa in general, but I'll speak for Rwanda because that's where I know most. So I think for solutions that can improve the agriculture, and also things that can make organic farming or even more products that we're not maybe able to do here, I think businesses or solutions, innovations that can increase that in the agribusiness is something that has a lot of potential today, but also in the years to come. I think for me, that's a sector I think has more potential. Yeah. What do you think?
Wonderful.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of points to what Giulio said. And hi, Giulio, by the way. He's a good friend of ALUSB. So
definitely,
Giulio,
I am.
Giulio mentioned legacy systems as one of the advantages that we have on the continent. The fact that we don't have to deal with, old legacy situations, and we can build everything from scratch. I'd like to add two things to that, which is one of the most obvious things that you see when you look at the continent is just the demographic trends. So having 75% of the population under 25 is a huge asset when you're thinking about digital strategy, and the fact that people are going to be digital natives. They are born into this. They understand what it means. They are TikTok experts and things like that. So that gives, I think, an edge to companies, startups who are imagining new products on the continent, because a lot of things that they do, are like preaching to the choir. The second one is the urbanization trend. You have the simple fact that by 2060, 60% of the population in Africa will live in cities. Now, we hope those are going to be smart cities. And actually, there's a conference in a month that's going to address that, making sure that we build resilient, inclusive, sustainable, smart cities. But that's a huge opportunity in terms of tech startups to make things different and build, I won't say Wakanda because that's a cliche, but, build cities that look like our dream sci-fi, if you're a sci-fi buff like me. Now, to go back to your question, Davide, in terms of the sectors, a lot has been said about fintech, and of course, I think probably M-Pesa is one of the most used, maybe overused examples of success stories on the continent. But I still would like to go back to the fact that we've only done fintech 1. Or maybe even fintech 0. I won't even say 1.0. I think that we are now at a stage where things have matured enough that we can build a second layer of services, insurtech, insurance services, loan services, and build, on top of blockchain products or blockchain powered products. So those are the next generation, next level products that I think that the tech entrepreneurs need to look at. And now we have the maturity in some of these markets, such as Kenya and Rwanda, of course, to now imagine solutions that would actually be viable with that second layer of more mature technologies.
Perfect. Thank you. I would also like to say hi to Giulio. I didn't get to say hi to him before. I was in his class like a few months ago. So it's great to see you again, Giulio.
Hi, Daniel. Good.
Yeah, so I would say mine is pretty similar. It incorporates aspects that everyone has said so far, but mine would probably be in the bucket of climate, like solutions that are focused on mitigating the climate change, right? And this is an aspect that my company is really focused on. We manufacture and distribute ceramic water filters, so negating the need to boil your water to treat it using firewood, charcoal, etc. And the reason why I say this is that we're currently raising for Series B. So we're talking with investors from all around the world. And I will say, if the investor, the VC, the private equity firm, or the strategic investor does not have a climate investment or a climate fund yet, they will have it in the near future. That's just kind of the trend that you're seeing from all around the world right now. And people are trying to find sustainable solutions. Got pretty bright. People are really trying to find sustainable solutions at how we can tackle climate change, right? And as a company, yeah, we do have a solution. There are not many people in the water filter market. However, we're always trying to innovate, trying to stay ahead, to really differentiate ourselves and better position our company when other companies do enter into the market. So how can we make our filter special? How can we make our distribution special? How can we incorporate technology to make sure that we're offering a better service or a better product, right? It incorporates everything into one, but I think a big trend that I'm seeing and a big opportunity is in these climate focused products and solutions.
Yeah, let me take advantage, David, about what I see around the world, because I think there are two worrisome trends that I'm observing a lot. What Momar said that about we have digital native, I completely agree with that. But I notice a lot that teaching here, especially at Esade, we have few programs that are a bit more tech oriented. For example, Daniel is doing the Executive MBA that's more business oriented, but we have some more tech oriented courses. And what somehow is very important to underline, that being digital native, it doesn't mean that you can create a digital ecosystem. To be able to use an iPhone, or even to have some ideas about the startup, it doesn't mean that you are going to contribute to the digital ecosystem. Actually, very often, what I'm noticing all over the world, when I talk about, I teach in Japan, I'm going to move in Japan in November for 3 months, is that there is a egocentrism in the people, that I'm going to do my own startup, I'm going to do my own system, and then I don't really care about what is happening up there. I'm going to do my own things and I have to be the strongest, and I will impose my will. I think this is one of the most dangerous way of doing things, because this is not going to create this way of cooperation. This is one of the trend that I see really worrisome. So I think it's very, very important to talk about this digital transformation. I'll give an example. When we talk about AI, every time when they ask me to go and speak and do a course, it's about AI, machine learning, and all this kind of stuff. Very often, assistants say, what I'm talking about is the organization. It's not about the tech part. It's about how you build this culture, how you build this way of getting there, of collecting the data, of using properly, and cooperating with the others. So I think this is one of the top things that we have to consider. And say this, I want to add to Cassie that when we talk about agribusiness or whatever, I'm not sure that there is a one specific field that we have to consider. And somehow we have to consider even more on what are the natural resources of the country. Why? Think of Taiwan. Taiwan had sugar cane, but they didn't do sugar cane. They did microchips. And that was allowed Taiwan to become what has become now. So I think when we think about AI, when we think about data, we have to start considering what is the advantage, how we can grow fast, what we can create that can be unique and really help the country to grow.
Yes, definitely, and thanks as well for the comment and for the addition. Anything to add to this point from any of you? Not now. Maybe we can get back to the point later. Okay. Then I'll move forward. So now that we discussed a little bit about the general situation, I'd like to be a little bit more specific, but before that, a little bit of history as well. So Momar, for this, I'd like to leverage your own experience moving around. And as well, so you mentioned it briefly, but so you're not from here, you've been living and working as well in different places over time. And so from your own perspective, from what you have seen, what have been so far the biggest transformation in entrepreneurship landscape in East Africa that you have seen?
Thank you. I think maybe I can list three things to me that stand out over the past 20, maybe 10, 20 years. The first one is, of course, the digitization trend that Giulio and my colleagues here, Cassie and Daniel have mentioned, right? Just digitization across the board in all sectors, all industries. And, you know, whether it's fintech, whether it's agri-tech or other types of health tech, you know, we see a really important trend towards using technology in more productive ways. The second one, maybe for me, is the creation of conducive ecosystems to support entrepreneurs and to support technology. Here in Rwanda, for instance, you know, if you take just the Kigali Innovation City, it's an amazing project that's spearheaded by the government of Rwanda with a very clear vision, ambitious goals, you know, environments such as Norscan and other tech hubs and tech startups make it much easier, I think, for entrepreneurs to actually get started, get the support they need, the community they need. And maybe the last point I will mention has to do with education. So you do have an emphasis on, you know, supporting from the ground up, you know, from high school level, you know, through college and even graduate programs, the emergence of entrepreneurial leaders of entrepreneurs. I'll sing for the praises of my own university. The whole mission of the African Leadership University is to develop ethical entrepreneurial leaders. I think that kind of emphasis on making sure that we have the right competencies and the right attitudes toward reforming the business environment and developing it is something that is new and that's exciting about the region right now.
If you have anything, please.
Yeah, maybe I can add in that, like, the 7 years that I've been in Uganda, one thing I've really noticed about East Africa when I'm traveling throughout is the entrepreneurial mindset. Like, it's contagious here. I think almost everyone has it. Yeah, I mean, and it drives me forward. It drives so many other people forward. So that's amazing to see. And we have recruited from Alu before, and just even with the students that we've recruited, you can also just tell, like, it's just like it's very noticeable and it's contagious, as I mentioned before. So definitely see that in East Africa here.
Fantastic. And maybe then jumping from this particular point to actually hear about the experience of entrepreneurs. Cassie, I'd like to start with you. So can you tell us a bit more in depth your own entrepreneurial journey and what has been, what worked well, what didn't work, what roadblocks as well you faced, how you overcame those ones, and I mean, anything you want to highlight specifically about your own journey as a witness of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here.
Thank you so much, David. My journey is long, but I'll try to mention key things. I think for me, the journey has been encouraging, I'll say, because I think the biggest thing for entrepreneurs, especially for people like me who decided to do that while studying, which was a very big risk, which my parents still ask me about, is the support, being able to have an environment and institutions, especially like ALU, the university, but also other incubator programs that are ready to support you. So it was, for us, it was really encouraging to be able to have an idea and not have to wait until we feel like we know everything to start. So in an environment where we are, especially for Rwanda, we have a lot of programs that are supporting young people to have their ideas, to believe in their ideas, and to seek for advices and to seek for programs that will train them on how to best do it, so that they know how to, have the numbers straight and the different documents that they need, but at the same time encourage them to look for impact. So most of the times when we started with us at Ikamba, we wanted so many things at the same time. We wanted to make sure that we're doing a business that can impact the communities, but at the same time create really high quality products, but at the same time be affordable. We wanted so many things that we didn't know exactly how they would work, but we would seek guidance from our facilitators at ALU. We would seek guidance from people who have already started it, and the people were encouraging, and they would give training programs. I remember there's an incubator program that we're part of. It was called Lift Her Up by Gate Consulting. And one of the issues, I'll give that as an example to explain, we wanted to, impact communities, like I mentioned. And our thought at first was, okay, we're going to, make business, have money, and then give a certain percentage of our profits to a certain vulnerable community. But the training program was like, okay, that's a great idea. We understand you want to, impact the community like that. But a more sustainable way to do that is to now rather employ those people and have them have a more sustainable impact, instead of just giving them a certain percentage and then you're helping them for maybe a few months and then you don't know how that's going to go afterwards. So it was a really highlighting moment for us to be able to have programs that are ready to take us in, ready to impact us, not necessarily requiring us to pay a huge amount of tuition for that, but at the same time inspire us to know, okay, you have a great idea, you have a great intention to want to impact your community, but this is the best way to do it, the more sustainable way to do it. And that has really impacted us to know how to have great ideas, but also think about impact. Don't just think about wanting to have a really nice product, but that's it. So think about the product, think about a more sustainable impact and how that's going to go with the years and how you're working. So that so far would be the example that I'll give with our experience. And also more that I would say would be that there has been a lot of pitches, or for example, I'll talk about the Hanga Pitch Festival. That's specifically on tech, but it's a bunch of programs that tell you, you know what, if you have an idea, come pitch it. You don't have to have everything ready, but just you have your idea and you have your passion and you don't have to wait until you have everything ready. And so that's what I would say around Rwanda in particular. They were really supportive. They're really supportive of entrepreneurs, depending on different different sectors, especially us in textile. And so being there and being supported just makes it easy for people to take the risk and be able to try it. And then from there, the guidance will come from, the institutions that you're in, the jobs that you're applying to. So for example, for people who have jobs like me, then you're learning from the job that you're doing, you're implementing that in your business so that you can keep growing. So the ecosystem here, I would say, is encouraging. And it's also really it's really paying attention to people. So when they start seeing that there's a trend in a certain sector that the people are going in, they will invest money, they will invest people to train you, they will invest incentives to make sure that they can support you and you're leading with guidance and passion at the same time. That's what I would say from my experience. Thank you.
Yes. jump into another entrepreneur, Daniel. So you mentioned as well in your introduction, no, talking about yourself, you were working in the US, consulting, I think, if I recall correctly, and then you moved to Uganda, where you built not one but two ventures. And so I'm curious to hear if you can share with us a little bit more about your motivations behind it. First, the journey as well, a little bit as Cassie shared. And then I would like to hear if you have anything to share as well about potentially different aspects of way of working, right? Do you feel things are different, or there are some similarities, differences, something that you like better here versus the US, or the other way around?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, maybe I worked in consulting for a bit at Deloitte for about 3 years. Then I transitioned to investment banking for about 3 to 4 years. And I was in that corporate life in the US, right? I really wanted to get involved in social impact, as I mentioned before, and I was very passionate about it. So it basically just took me a 5-minute phone call to pack my bags, jump on a flight to Entebbe, and that's exactly what I did. And that passion, and you could tell it from Kessie as well, like that passion brings you so far. Right. I had very humble beginnings when I moved to Kampala. You guys know Makerere University. I was staying at those hostels for like the first year. And that was really good because then, one, I got to see kind of the problems at hand. Right. And then I got to better develop the business model to come up with something, most importantly, sustainable. Right. Something that's going to outlive me, something that's going to be here 5, 10, 15 years down the line. Right. So that's extremely important. And I would say my journey in the very beginning was I was lost, made a lot of mistakes, and then that's okay. That's like my biggest advice to anyone who's looking to start their own company, their own social enterprise, etc. It's okay to make mistakes. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are very tough on themselves, myself included. But just always know that there's a bunch of other people that are there to support you. You're not in on this alone. Even if, you know, like I'm in a different industry or Kessie's in a different industry, we're here to support because we go through a lot of the same challenges. So make mistakes. And if you do make mistakes, make them fast, learn from that and move forward, right? I can tell you 95% of my decisions in the very beginning were mistakes, and it's okay. It's without those mistakes, I would not be here where I am today. And then maybe to answer the other question that you had on like the differences between the US work culture and what I'm experiencing now in East Africa. I always tell a lot of people that jumping on that plane was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I still believe that to this day, because one, I'm passionate about what I did or what I currently do. In the US, I could still have some impacts, but I was still behind a desk, crunching numbers, you know, giving it to my boss who would give it to the clients, etc. I wasn't really seeing the impact on the ground. Whereas where I currently work, I get to see all the way down to our customer. Like even yesterday, I was at Homo Island, right? And then I got on a flight to come here to see you all and then to see the office in Kigali. But that's what I love to do. I love to see the impact. Every single decision that we make as an organization, we get to see the impact on the ground. And I think that's really, really important in an organization, especially I think we were talking about work culture. That's something I take very seriously at our company at Spouts. Everyone within the organization is actually required to go to the field 1 time a quarter, because if you're just, let's say you're an accountant, sorry to tease accountants, like every invoice that you make or every order that you make, that's actually making a difference. And by going out to the field and seeing that impact on the ground, you'll be able to see how your role is different than another role. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think that passion is extremely important, and seeing the impacts on the ground is also very important.
Wonderful. Thank you as well. Going back, Momar, so when you were talking before, you mentioned the importance of education as one of the points, right? And of course, I mean, makes sense given your role, but again, given your experience and the let's say advantage viewpoint you had so far, I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, what is working well in terms of the way, especially in Rwanda, education works in terms of preparing entrepreneurs, and what still needs to be done?
So I think I've mentioned already some of the key breakthroughs, I think, or the key steps that Rwanda and the government here in particular are taking, including creating the supportive ecosystems such as the tech hubs that I've mentioned before, and attracting some of the leading universities in the world to set up shop in Rwanda and make sure that there is sufficient supply when it comes to opportunities for young people, not just in the country, but across the continent, to come to Rwanda and study and have degrees that are globally competitive and that are, comparable to degrees that you would get anywhere else in the world. I think that's one of the first step. There is a second one, which I think is extremely important, which has to do with mindset, and it's the whole startup culture that the government in particular, but the society as a whole has established, right? Rwanda is now known as a startup nation, pretty much on the continent, one of the most successful ones. There are a lot of sandbox environments, whether it's in specific sectors or policy-wise. I was actually just yesterday at a workshop with the Ministry of ICT, and they were talking about many of the policies that they're introducing to make it easier to test things, right? And this is across institutions in the country, whether it's regulatory institutions such as RURA, other institutions, they are open to trying and testing things. It's no accident that a company like Zipline is thriving here. I do remember in Senegal when drones started, I had a conversation with a high-level police official. I will not name the rank or the name or anything, but in the Francophone culture, things are very different, and this actually is a testament to why Anglophone Africa is a little bit ahead in terms of entrepreneurship. In the Francophone culture, it's very top-down, right? Kind of the laws come down from God or whatever higher power to the government and then trickle down, and nothing really is allowed unless the government allows it, which is a little bit the opposite as what you have in the Anglophone system, where there's more room to test things and try them. And that's why, in fact, if you look at even the legal system, the common law system is a system that's built from the ground up, right? You have cases that make up jurisprudence that then end up in general rules, whereas in the Francophone system usually go the other way around. You have these very generic rules, and then on a case-by-case basis, sometimes exceptions are made. And so that, even in commercial law, ends up giving certain types of results, and I think one is definitely more suited to entrepreneurship than the other. And so those are some of the cultural and sort of ecosystem reasons why there is a big change, and some of the changes across the continent happen at different speeds based on political will, on the receptiveness of the environment, on the vision of the leadership, political vision, and political willpower, as they say usually. And I think East Africa in general and Rwanda in particular are very lucky in that respect.
Can I add something? And
Please,
then
I was going to ask. So yes, please do.
Thank you. So exactly, what you talk about, Moma, is exactly what is very, very important. And for example, Zipline would not have been possible in US, would not have been possible in Europe, probably. So that's why when I talk about this lack of legacy, it's one of the advantages. But then the passion of Daniel is unique. You cannot find many Daniel in the world. So somehow we have to make it easier, because I don't know, imagine how many people can stay in a hostel in Kampala. So we have to make it also easier, this kind of growth. So when we consider the passion, that's number key. Cassie, Daniel, you have the best example. But then when we consider the infrastructure of the government, I was making the example of Silicon Valley, whatever, also is very, very important. But then is when the university comes, and then the combination of all these things make it all possible. The passion, the infrastructure, and the knowledge. And this is the growth that we need organically, starting from the future. I make the example of the Italian district that you know really well, Davide. No? When we think about Brianza, we talk about the Veneto, that you have an ecosystem where everyone gets there and there's already something unique to do. And maybe you start doing screws for a specific machine, and everyone gives you the tool to start producing the screw, the raw material, the legal services, and whatever. This is the next step to have everyone aligned so that we don't have this creation of egocentric startup that I've seen very many places, unfortunately. We don't have this theoretical law sometimes from the government. Sometimes they're very well intentioned, but maybe they are too slow, whatever. This is the way to test all the things. So these three elements, I think, will be very, very successful.
Wonderful. And yeah, absolutely relevant. I would like to as well hear Daniel and Cassie from your perspective, but going back to let's say students, or Daniel, technically you're still a student right now, but how did your academic journey influence your journey, your entrepreneurial journey? And as well, did you think something was lacking? Because that as well will be interesting, especially for us that actively work in education, to know if you think something should have been done potentially different, because we could maybe act on that.
I want to start. Yeah.
You want me to start? Okay. Yeah, I think before I said it's great to learn from your mistakes, which I definitely believe is true, but you don't always have to make them. And I think that's where the education has really kicked in. As I mentioned, like I'm an Executive MBA candidate for Esade right now. I'm in the hybrid program. It's one of the top 4 rankings for MBA schools for entrepreneurship, right? And that was what really attracted me to join this program, also because my wife is in the full-time MBA, but that's another story. But it's a really great program. And it's really helped me kind of avoid a lot of mistakes, not only that I probably would have faced in the near future, but then also what you get to learn about what other companies have done when they face that same challenge. How did they solve it, or what problems did they face, and then how did they mitigate those risks? You know, so it gives you that kind of holistic view, that broader perspective that you can actually take and put into your own, you can apply into your own company. And as I mentioned, like we're doing our series funding right now, and then basically we're at a table where investors are trying to pick apart your business model, pick apart everything that you've done so they can get a better deal, right? So the ways that you could kind of mitigate that or be better prepared is through these educations, and how you can use these classes like entrepreneurial mindset or strategic thinking and development, right? How can you structure your pitch, and how can you structure your business model to already be to already mitigate a lot of the risks that will be mentioned, right? So it really helped me, and it really helped Spouts really come up with a very clear business model that most importantly is sustainable for 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So I think these classes really helped me avoid some of the mistakes that could have come in the near future.
I wanted to hear Daniel, but I'm one of his professors. Now I have to leave. Thank you so much, and sorry about it.
Giulio.
Thanks, Giulio.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I was noting down the mistakes first because I had not thought about that. So I wanted to keep them written. So for the impact that the Academy or ALU had on me as my entrepreneur journey, the first thing was we kept hearing, do hard things, you know, every day, do hard things. And it was really hard to think about opening a business when you don't really have as much experience to start a business. And at the same time, you're in school, and it's a very tough school, let them not lie. It's tough on us. So you had a lot of assignments to do, and then you're also putting on a responsibility to start a business, and it's hard. But again, the school, the culture was do hard things. And if you're scared, do them scared. Or if you're doubting, do them when you're doubting. It's okay. The biggest part is you can do them. And they're hard, but you can do them. And that was one of the things that really made us, because I actually started the business with 2 other students who still also went to the African Leadership University. So we started it together. So we were in the same culture, in the same mindset, like you had mentioned, which was really important. The other thing was ALU had a culture of find solutions for the challenges that you have. So even when we had challenges as students, as well, you know, we think this assignment is really hard. I remember there are times where we thought we were assigned things for like graduate level, and we're like, we don't think this is on our level, and we would openly tell that to our facilitators and say, we think this is really hard for us, and they would say, no, try again and find a solution. Or even if we'd go to them and give them an actual challenge and they would acknowledge that it's a challenge, they'll still tell us to suggest our own solution. We would go thinking that they're going to suggest solutions for us because, we're students and they're supposed to facilitate things and make it easier for us, but they'll still come back and say, you found a challenge, propose a solution, we'll advise if that solution works or not, but think about the solution as well. And that influenced starting a business, because there are problems that you could see. There's an impact you wanted to make. We looked at brands here and we thought, okay, we have really nice brands in Rwanda, but we think there are gaps. We want to make a brand that's a bit more affordable, that's not crazy expensive, it's still luxury, affordable luxury. And then, the environment is, you see a challenge, find a solution. Maybe it's not a perfect solution, but find it and implement it. And so I think that was the biggest impact that ALU had in terms of the encouragement and how it impacted the entrepreneur journey. But as well, we also had, programs that taught us about how to be entrepreneurs and how to start early and just to have prototypes and all of these different stages, not to just have an idea, to make sure that you can implement it the right way, and also speak to investors, speak to the customers, and just test and see if something is going to work out. Now, for the mistakes or the things that I think the educators can change to help is, the first thing for me would be to be able to track the students and their businesses. So what I mean here is, if you're a school like Esade or ALU, have I don't know if I could say one person or a team or a committee that is strictly following through students and their impacts. Because when we start businesses like we did at school, we didn't necessarily go to mention it at school. We just started it. And there's a lot of guidance that we could have had from school, if we could have probably partnered, or maybe if we had gone to the facilitators and tell them we want to start a business and all of that. So I think if schools can have a way to track, to be able to say, okay, in this year we have this amount of students, and just like they know that, our students have started maybe these programs, if a student starts a business, have a way to know that, have a way to track that, because when you do, you can approach them yourselves. So like the problem that Giulio mentioned of, people who start their businesses and they just want to do things their own way. It's really true. It happens because sometimes you don't like how the system is and you just want to try your own things. And it's going to backfire in the future, because you're going to find already existing laws that you have to go by. But if the school can track and say, okay, we have this amount of students, and they're tracking what the students are doing, and they can easily track that, okay, these students have started a business, and then they can approach them instead of waiting for the students to approach in terms of wanting guidance. Then they can start saying, you started a business, we want to support it. These are the different things we think you should do. Maybe, just advice, because these people are your ambassadors. These people are going to go and say, I'm a student from ALU and I've started a business. So they're representing you at the end of the day, or a student from Esade or whatever educator. So the educators should be able to track what the students are doing and be able to provide the guidance from themselves proactively. If the students take the advice, I think it would be really great for the schools. The second thing would be to be able to follow through even afterwards. So even after, maybe if a student starts something after the school, if there's something you can find out, then I think the guidance from the school could be supported. So if Esade finds out that maybe a student has started a business or something afterwards through the guidance, they can make sure they have programs that support those students with what they're doing, specifically for students who have been part of that education, so that they can always feel like they're supported. And when they're stuck in their journeys, they can come back to their institutions for that guidance in terms of entrepreneur journeys. That's what I think was a mistake, not necessarily a mistake that ALU did, but something that I think could be really more improved in universities in general. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks as well for the inspiration. These are really, I think, what we all need in terms of knowing how to better support entrepreneurs like you. I'd like now to move towards the end of the panel, and basically the vast majority of people here in the audience are entrepreneurs, or have some sort of very, very close relationship, or are aspiring entrepreneurs. So I'd like to try to move and use the last part of our conversation to talk a little bit more about the future and talk about opportunities. The first question I have, and these are all going to be general questions. So for the three of you, anybody as well, no, feel free to jump in at any point. My question is, in Rwanda and again, East Africa in general, we've been discussing a little bit already about the peculiarities, what could be interesting businesses. I want to add a little bit more complexity to that and ask, what do you think would be interesting industry, markets, kind of business areas that people could build companies in to attract funding from European investors specifically, if you think there will be any difference?
Thank you. I think building on what Daniel had said earlier on climate change and the green revolution, I think businesses that could start, that can even attract European investments and co-creation would be businesses that are eco-friendly or are impacting the environment somehow, because those are things that impact everyone around the world. And so Europeans involved and Africans involved, or Rwandans or East Africa in this case. And so if you can think about a business that creates value for the community, but at the same time is impacting the environment positively, or is part of the green revolution, I think that is something that can really attract investment anywhere, even in Europe, even particularly Europe. So for solutions like that, I think is very crucial for us as humans, because we have global warming becoming even worse and all these other climate change issues that really scare all of us. So if there's anything that we can do to be able to keep our environment safe for us, I think a business that has those solutions and innovations, it could be in tech, it could be in fashion, it could be in any sector, that particular business has a chance to attract investment from Europe or even anywhere around the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. I'd actually like to build off on that. So it's just kind of marrying two things, like one, the climate impact that we were talking about, like those solutions. It's a huge market. I think it's currently a $2 billion market. Like, let's just say carbon credits. I think we've all heard about those. I think by 2050, it's projected to be around $1 trillion. So it can just show you the scale of that market and how fast that's growing. So maybe one area that could be an opportunity for investment is the tech side of it. Right. Right now there's a lot of carbon credits going out, but there are not many tech solutions to accurately track the impact exactly for every water filter that's going out, every cook stove, every tree that's planted. So I do believe being able to track it accurately and using technology to do that is a pretty big opportunity there that I have not seen in the market so far.
I think they've covered a lot of ground already. I'll just add to it maybe a meta concern, which is scalability. So in general, it's easier to attract investors when you have a clear plan for how the business is going to scale. So this could be in any sector. And the second piece I will add, and this ties into also the ALU mission to develop ethical entrepreneurial leaders, and I want to stress the ethical part. I think that one of the challenges on the continent, if we want to be honest with ourselves, is governance, right? And that is both in the public sector and in the private sector. So it's important from the beginning to develop companies and to develop startups that are set up properly and have proper governance structures. And that's often one of the issues that ends up hurting later when you want to scale. In fact, the two are a bit linked. So, paying attention to some of those fundamentals, and it goes to the point that Cassie mentioned earlier. I think it has a lot to do also with mentorship and with coaching. These are some of the things that entrepreneurs usually do not necessarily spend a lot of time on, because they're so passionate, so excited about the product and what they are going to sell, that they sometimes ignore or spend less time on some of the more boring governance and setup issues. So paying attention to some of those things and making sure that you have the proper governance structures, boards, and then all of the things that go along with it can be very important if you are trying to attract go beyond the seed and early stage and to the alphabet series and things like that.
Wonderful. And now I'd like to turn it around. And so what would be needed, or what do you think could be improved if you want to make East Africa an attractive area for companies founded in Europe to actually come into as a potential new market to expand? We go into tougher and tougher questions towards the end.
Repeat that last part.
So what do you think will be needed, if anything at all, to make, let's say, East Africa an interesting market for ventures, startups that are actually started in Europe, and then basically to see this as an attractive, interesting area to expand into?
I kind of had an answer, but then you said founded in Europe, so maybe you can see first. Yeah.
I'm still gonna rephrase because I want to make sure I understand the question. Is it businesses in Europe that are already founded in Europe to be able to expand and now work in East Africa? That's the question. Okay. Also, like, entrepreneurs come here even if they're not founded in terms of business. Okay. Okay, interesting question. Yeah. I think for me, what I think is, so businesses in terms of sectors, or okay, so okay, for both. So for my idea, my idea, because I'm still trying to understand the question, is if entrepreneurs in Europe can look at co-creation or collaboration, because and also because, you know, most of the times when sometimes, I'm not going to say sometimes when they're coming, sometimes there's not enough collaboration between the locals and them, because the locals are the ones who really know what's going on ground. So if there was a mindset or a spirit of global expertise meeting local expertise, then I think that will really attract collaboration, co-creation. Because if Europeans or a European entrepreneur or a business can think about collaboration in East Africa or even Rwanda in general, in particular, I mean, then that can spark creation if they think about it like that. Because founding something here is possible, but I think the best that has more potential is collaboration and co-creation. If you can already think about that, then your business or your passion or your field of work, you can easily find something that works with that here, and then collaborate and co-create, bring your global expertise and work with a local expertise, because then that will provide solutions that are tailored to the people, but at the same time is providing value to you as well as a European entrepreneur or even a European business. I also think exploring cultures, because I think East Africa in general is very rich in culture. And I think so exploring that, seeing what are the businesses and opportunities in the culture that affect the culture, then can really, really bring up the Europeans to come to see things that they don't necessarily have there, because the cultures here are very rooted in the past, in what we do. And so if they're inspired by what we do here culturally, that could be in terms of also the tourism sector, because that's where you see a lot of our cultures, Rwanda specifically, and also East Africa. Then if you see it like that, that can attract the tourism, maybe that'd be the sector that I'm giving as an example, can then directly attract European businesses, but also entrepreneurs to want to work with that, because that's something that they cannot find there, to be able to work together and then find value for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's co-creation and it's collaboration. There's so many times that I see that there are problems, right? And then there are a lot of people, entrepreneurs, trying to find the solution for that problem. And I see from like a higher level, just other people trying to find, they have the same solution, but they're not working together at all. Whether you're in Europe or you're in Uganda or you're in Rwanda, or everyone's basically in the same community, there's very little collaboration. And I think that's the way that we can find more sustainable solutions. So it's not making it 2 times as hard. Like maybe you can actually collaborate with someone with the same mindset, with the same solution, and to find that, to find and build something sustainable.
I think that in general, the environment plays a big role in terms of, ease of doing business. So a lot of countries, Rwanda is not one of them. Kenya is also one of the leaders, so they can rest pretty much, with respect to what I'm about to say. But I think a lot of countries still have a lot of work to do in terms of creating an environment that's conducive enough for foreign businesses to set up shop on the continent. Things that are very basic, such as the fiscal structure. Even how do you pay taxes? Can you even pay taxes without having to keep 3 different books, and all of the stories that we know. But the second one that I would also mention is, of course, the education piece, which is really important. I think when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming from outside, not just Europe, one of the first things they ask is, can I find reliable, competent workforce on the continent, right? And that also is a constraint. We have a lot of very bright young people, but we need to make sure that they are empowered and educated and have the tools to actually function in a corporate environment, in a modern company, and have some of the basic things that are expected in terms of professionalism, in terms of being able to actually communicate, work in teams, and some of those 21st century skills, which education plays a big part in.
Wonderful. I think all of those very relevant points. I think with this in mind, we can jump to a first closing of the panel with one final question, and then we as well open it up for questions from the public, because we also, of course, want to hear what you have to ask and give people an opportunity to ask in person as well online. I know we have people that are watching us from home or anywhere remotely. So my last question for today for all of you would be, do you have basically anything to add to all the conversation we had so far in terms of what could be needed by any of the stakeholders, so local, international, entrepreneurs, investors, institutions, to make Rwanda and East Africa a more interesting environment for high growth, high impact ventures? Anyone, if you have?
Yeah, maybe I can start off. As an entrepreneur, you start your business with one goal in mind. You have a mission, you have a vision of the company. And I would say, as you continue to grow your company and you scale your company, stay true to that. I've seen a lot of instances where entrepreneurs see like a new opportunity, or they see a shiny new object, and then they kind of pivot the whole business, and then they go towards that shiny new object, even though it might be like a short-term gain or a short-term opportunity. So one thing that my advice would just be to always stay true to what you wanted to do in the first place. You had a mission as an organization, you were passionate about it. You could pivot from time to time, but I've seen so many people just constantly pivoting and then creating a company that's not really what they wanted to create in the very beginning. And you see this with scaling organizations as well. And that's why sometimes you don't see these organizations succeed in the long run. But yeah, always just stay true to the company, to the mission, to the vision, and what you started out to do.
Thank you. I think for me, what I'll say is not very far from what Daniel said. Stay true to what you believed in as an entrepreneur, what you started, and be very, very, very open. I think that what I was mentioning with co-creation, I think it's easy to say co-creation, but it's not very, very easy to practice it and implement it. And I think there's so much potential for Rwanda, for even East Africa as a whole, but also to collaborate with Europe. And so, but it's not an easy thing to do. And so I think the mindset topic, or the mindset idea that Momor had mentioned, is very, very important, because the mindset affects everything else. And so I think the mindset is what I would talk about. And I would say for all of us, for entrepreneurs, for upcoming ones, for those in Europe, for those in Rwanda, for anything that we can do to really make Rwanda and East Africa in general a better environment, or better for entrepreneurial activities, is our mindset. If we stick to trying to create impact, I think that businesses with impact should really be always our drive. If we can always think about a product, if we can always think about a service that we want to give, but it has impact, then at the end of the day, the collaborations and everything else will be easier because everyone wants a better society. Everyone wants a better country, a better continent, a better region. And so if a business or if the activity has impact, then I think that will influence mindsets, and then it will create better environments and also better collaboration. So for me, that would really be it for all of us.
If I had maybe a few things that I've learned from hard experience to share, the first thing would be that it's better to earn or to own, sorry, it's better to own 1% of a billion than 100% of a dime, right? It's easy as an entrepreneur, and I think Daniel mentioned that earlier. I think it was Daniel, but I'm not sure. It's sometimes hard to, when you've nurtured a baby, it's your idea. It's very hard to be open to letting other collaborators come in, to partnering with other people. But you have to remember that diversity is a real strength, and diversity can be viewed along many different angles and axes. It's not just about gender diversity, about cultural diversity. It's also about just intellectual diversity. There are things that, you know, as a mathematician, I think a certain way when I talk to sociologists, to people who, you know, have more of a background in humanities, they bring a wealth of expertise and knowledge that I could never bring. A second point, which is related but not quite the same, is as an entrepreneur, you cannot do everything, but everything has to be done, right? So there's a tension there, right? You are not necessarily a good accountant. Most of us are not. You are not a good HR person. Most of us are not. But those are critical things that, you know, tend to be left on the back burner and come back to haunt you. So I'm glad to hear that, in fact, in Rwanda right now, there's a lot of thought that's being put in terms of support services for startups, so that, you know, some of the very bright people who are creating companies and have products can focus on really developing those products, and maybe leave some of those other fundamental but not necessarily areas of strengths for them to other people to support them with, right? And those could be pool services that entrepreneurs can leverage. So again, you cannot do everything, but everything has to be done, right? So you have to balance those two things. And finally, you just have to follow your gut, your passion, right? You have to believe in what you're doing enough that it will warrant sleepless nights and leaving your job if you have one, and you know, putting whatever time and energy is necessary in actually growing it. It's not going to be an easy road. It's going to take years and lots of failures and falling and getting back up, but that's exactly why it's so exciting and rewarding in the end.
Wonderful. I think, thank you all very, very much for, first of all, for coming, for the time, but as well for being so transparent and so open in your answers. I took a lot of notes, so that will give me as well some time to think. But for now, first of all, a massive round of applause for all of our speakers and our contribution. And now it's time for public questions. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hands. A microphone will be brought to you. But as well, if somebody from home wants to ask, maybe we can check. But let's go.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. I just have like two couple of questions. My name is Theophile, by the way. My first question is concerning African as a land of opportunities, like we are breeding from scratch, but entrepreneurs don't give opportunities to those newcomer or fresher. My second question is, how do we get to entrepreneurship without getting much trouble? Thank you.
I'm very interested in the answer to this last one. Anyone?
Sorry, to complete my second question, because most of entrepreneurs here, like Cassie and Daniel, say they made a lot of mistakes. So how to avoid those mistakes when we get to entrepreneurship?
Maybe I can try to take a stab at that second question. It's extremely difficult. I can't even tell you how many sleepless nights I've had, right? Like when we were growing, and you know, you literally face every single obstacle. Just when you feel like you're in like smooth grounds and you're coasting, you finally made it, something will happen. I guarantee you. Right. And then you have sleepless nights. Like I used to joke around, like I had like panda eyes because like and all of that. But it makes it so much more rewarding, like Momar mentioned, right? It's very challenging, but that's the fun in it. Right. And I'll be honest too, like entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I think that's a big piece, and that's okay. Right. But yeah, I would say it's very challenging. If you do find an entrepreneur who said it was easy, please, I'll give you my email.
All of
Please
our
connect him
emails.
or her with me.
Thank you. The first question was about, I want to make sure I got it. Newcomers, that African enterprises are not easy, don't accept newcomers. Was that the question? Newcomers in terms of? Like individuals from work to come work for the businesses. Oh, okay. Well, what I would say about that, I think for me, it's about the drive of the person. I think the purpose of why the person is approaching a certain business is important, and businesses, you know, have goals, they have visions. And so if a person approaches a certain enterprise or institution in line with the vision, or they want to learn, or they want to be part of it, I think no institution should be against that. Institutions have policies. Sometimes it's about, you know, like levels and all that, but you will, if you are very passionate about what you're trying to go after, you will not miss an institution that will welcome you in, if you are in line, of course, with what they want to do. So I think when you approach an institution and you want to be part of it as a newcomer, and maybe it's the first time you're doing it, or it's the first time you want to go in that field, know how to present yourself, learn a lot about that institution, and find a way to be able to explain how you're going to be part of the vision, what you're going to contribute, even if it's not necessarily the experiences that you have. It could be that you want to volunteer. And I think some institutions, or a lot of institutions, are very open to that. And for the second question of mistakes and how to avoid them, you will make mistakes. There's no way to avoid them. But there's a way to reduce them, I think. At least that's what I think. I think there's a way to sort of, if you were supposed to make 100 mistakes, you can make 80. You just balance, yes. So my advice for that would be mentorship and coaching. And that's also hard because sometimes, especially when you have a new business and you have a really nice idea, you might go to a wrong person, and this person will want to take your idea or advantage. So it's hard to find the right person, but just be very mindful of what institution or a person or a program that you can go to for mentorship. And the reason I say this is because these institutions or these people are trained to help entrepreneurs. And so they know the common mistakes. They know that maybe you don't know how to do balance sheet and all these things. So there's so many things that they can help you do before you start saying, I want to launch a business. And then from there, the guidance that you will have will allow you to, you're still going to make mistakes, but at least they're going to be in a safer ground. And they're going to be, like Daniel had mentioned, they're going to be mistakes that you can correct soon and you can keep moving forward. So don't just freestyle. Don't just have an idea and say, I want to sell shoes. And so I think the way they sell shoes is take pictures and put them on Instagram and say, I sell shoes. Educate yourself on the matter, on the field, on the product that you want to sell. Educate yourself a lot. The place you want to do it from, if it's in Rwanda, the target audience, who you could work with, how do you register your business, and the taxes, like they had mentioned, so many things. Educate yourself before, and have a constant coaching. Because sometimes you think you read on RDB how you should register, but that's not enough. You need to be reminded that maybe after registration, there's renewal of the certificate, there's new taxes, there are new laws, there's all these things. So just educate yourself consistently on what you're doing before you do it, and that will reduce the amount of mistakes that you can make as an entrepreneur. That's from my experience. Thank you.
I think that one of the things that you ask is a very important point. Why is it that companies usually are not very excited to get newcomers and students who are just fresh out of school? I think part of it is a fault of the education systems, right? I mean, there is, I think it's mostly widely accepted now. It's something that's rooted in basically constructivist pedagogy, that 10% of what you know, or what you know how to do well, is because someone told you about it, right? And 20% is because you've watched someone do it, and 70% is because you've done it yourself, right? And that actually underlies a lot of the sort of experiential learning approach and philosophy that ALU has, right? That for you to really be effective, you actually have to learn within context. You have to be able to do things yourself, not just hear a professor lecture about it, or watch them do it. And this is one of the things that in our education systems in Africa has to be changed, and it's changing, but slowly. And once we are able to actually make that transition, I think that it'll be much easier for companies to onboard students and interns and young staff easily. There is a reason why in Nordic countries, and in Germany in particular, the sort of training apprenticeship process has been studied worldwide as one of the keys to their success in terms of vocational training and things like that. It's again because students at a very early age, from high school and even early in college, are given the opportunity to actually be in co-op situations and learn how to function within companies and industries. And that's what then facilitates the transition. And we have to be able to do the same thing in our education systems. And that would then in turn solve some of these issues that you're talking about.
Mr. Momar, I'm getting you very well, but earlier you said about basics. We get basics on school, we graduate, and then we need those opportunities, those internships to get to the good job, to get to the vision, our vision. Let's say we have vision to big companies, how we get to that. But we start like, let's say we finished, graduated, and we need those opportunities, because we can, I'm a big advocate to say you can learn from job. You can learn much from job, and they don't give you those opportunities to learn from job. That the big issue, and many Rwandans face that issue. They can spend like 5 hours applying for job without getting anything. But myself, I'm in tech. I'm trying to be a very proactive as I can, trying to get those new things, try to build new stuff. But let's say some people came from marketing without having any experience, going to internship, and they refuse those opportunities to them, how to get to that. And those entrepreneurship want to build a big Africa with good opportunities. Thank you.
I mean, if anyone has anything to add here, feel free. But then just as a general comment, because I've seen in the meantime a few hands going up, let's try to keep the questions a little bit short so that we can give more people opportunity to ask more questions. No? Do you want to add something, Cassie? Yeah. So Cassie has a quick comment before we jump to the next question.
Sorry, a small comment or suggestion for that. I think you should always have plan A, B, C, D. So if you approach by applying online and it's not working, find that company. Let's say, for example, you said it was tech. Let's say it's Irembo, and go there to Irembo. Go to Irembo. Go there physically. Ask for a meeting for who you want to meet. Introduce yourself. Say what you want to do. And if it doesn't work, take another business and try. So what I'm trying to suggest here is don't just apply maybe online to like 10 companies and sit and be like, I've applied for 10 companies, and if they don't respond, then they're not inclusive or whatever. You can try that, which is a really it should be applauded. It's brave of you. And then also try other means, and other means could be go directly to these companies, ask to meet someone and tell them, hey, I do tech and I want to volunteer, I want to learn, I want to try this. And surely you will be able to get a company out of the companies that you will approach directly to give you a chance. At least is what I believe. Thank you.
Good evening.
I think this is a great testament about the approach you were mentioning, right? That you learned about how to never stop in front of a challenge, but finding other solutions that you're really putting in place. Please.
Yes, my name is Giulio Steven, and I'm a Congolese refugee from Uganda, currently at African Leadership on a mission to help refugees to rewrite their narrative through it's tech literacy and numeracy. So I have a question and I would like to ask. So it's like in alignment on making mistakes, on learning from mistakes. So it's like, what about a new entrepreneur who has identified a problem and done a lot of surveys and interviews, and they do understand what is the need of the customers. But when it happens, like maybe you get a chance to pitch in front of investors and they tell you like, we are not connected on whatever you're saying. But for you, out of whatever you have done, the research and the interviews, you know that this is what my customers need. So what would be an advice to a such entrepreneur? Thank you.
Interesting question. Any?
I think it's a great question. I'm not sure if this answer will fully answer it, but I think doing a lot of research on the investor you're also going to pitch to is very important. I've seen many cases where you could be talking to a healthcare investor and you're pitching something completely different in manufacturing. That's one thing. It's like, do as much due diligence on the investor as possible. And it's also not like what Kessie said with applying for a job. Do a lot of research, find these networking events like this, talk to them firsthand or in person, and that can get your foot in the door. And just say, hey, also be open to suggestions and just say, hey, this is my mission. This is what I want to accomplish. What are some suggestions? So maybe you won't get an answer now, but you know the blueprint to get that answer to be a yes in the future. So again, it's like, maybe you don't have to make that mistake. Maybe just figure out like, okay, what are some of the roadblocks in the way, and then proactively go about them. So that's kind of what I suggest. I would say the first 2 years when I was in Uganda scaling Spouts, I was like, I had 100% failure rate, right? But it's just getting back up, learning from it, going to the right investors. If the investor says no, just say, hey, this is the solution. Who can I go to that could fund something like this? Or maybe find an angel investor, someone who doesn't have to be an institutional investor or something. Find someone that's very passionate about what you do. Get that angel investor. So now you have 2 people or 3 people that can really support you in accomplishing your mission.
My suggestion would be 2 suggestions. The first one would be find incubator programs. So incubator programs here, at least for Rwanda, for the ones I know, sometimes they have a very specific criteria of who they want, but usually it will go with the idea. So if you're an entrepreneur, maybe they'll give a number of years, but an incubator programs most of the times are linked to investors, and they will help you. They'll help you work on your pitch and on your idea and your business plan to be able to fit or to talk the same language with the investor. So it could be that you have an amazing idea, but when you talk to the investor, like you just said, they tell you they don't connect because they don't understand what you're trying to do. And maybe that is because of how you pitch your idea. And so incubator programs, so most of the time, at least for the ones I've known, they'll teach you how to explain your idea in a way that investors will understand it. And sometimes they'll even link you directly with the investor that could be interested. And I think Daniel's point is very important of who are you approaching in terms of that, because their investors are maybe interested in like green solutions. Their investors are interested in like women solutions, stuff like that. So if you're going to talk to an investor that wants to support like women businesses that impact women, for example, and you're telling them a business that's impacting people maybe with disability, they might feel like it's a nice idea, but they won't connect because maybe the money that they have is strictly for certain things. So like he said, really, really find an institution or an investor that is in line with what you're trying to do. And now my second advice would be find a business or an institution that is doing a little bit of what you want to do. I think that there are many creative new ideas, but I also think there's always a relation with the idea you're trying to do. So with the idea you have, there might be a business that's doing something similar or something that's close to it or something that is related. and then approach that business and ask them for advice. Like, how did you come up with this business? Where did you find investors to support you? What partners do you work with? And then you can start from there, because if it's a business that's doing something similar to you, they can quickly connect you or advise you on how they did it to get there. And then you can always learn from that and then also follow the path, the trajectory. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. I see a lot of hands, but also I'm hearing that there are some questions probably from people remotely. So I guess Sam is going to read those questions.
Yes, I see there's a question from Gerald. He's our incoming student from Kenya. He's asking, what are important questions that are not asked that an entrepreneur should be asking?
Okay, tough one. Who wants to jump in? I need to think. Okay,
I could try to take a stab. One, I think as an entrepreneur, you have that mindset of like, this is what I'm going to do, very passionate, and just streamline, you go forward. But then you need to do a lot of research to understand what the competitive market is like. Is there another solution? How am I differentiating myself from other players in the market? So you're not just basically like setting yourself up to not succeed, right? So just doing a very thorough research, fully understanding the industry, the solution, and yeah, and I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I would say is just, is there something else like this? And if there is, how can I differentiate without losing my identity or losing that passion of what I want to do?
Thank you. I think a question that entrepreneurs don't ask enough is, how will this business that I started operate if I die? A lot of us, start and we're like, we're passionate about this. You have this vision and you have this product, but you could be hit by the bus and you're gone, and your business will go with you because you didn't think about how your business can operate and keep living without you, because you are the founder, maybe you're the vision holder, but we should be able to create businesses that can live longer or that can keep going. Like Daniel had said, that I quoted it somewhere, I think beyond you, or I don't remember the right word, but it's just something that can live beyond yourself. If you die, what's going to happen? And I also think the second thing is a question that entrepreneurs don't ask is, how do I create a long-term loyal team? That's how I'd call it. Because the teams and the people we work with, the workforce is so important in getting the vision out there. And so if you're constantly changing teams all the time, it's going to affect how you get to your goals. And so I don't think the entrepreneurs dwell on that so much, to make sure that they can create teams that can be really loyal to the company, even if it's not theirs, and even if they don't necessarily have to have shares. But how do you make sure that you share your vision to a point where the fellow staff or the staff that you're working with really understand what you're doing? They're so part of it that even if they go to other institutions, they're like ambassadors, and they're still, portraying or building on your vision wherever they go. How do you build such a community for your business to keep going and to be in the hands of loyal staff? I think that's something that most entrepreneurs don't think about. Yeah, thank you.
If you have any.
I think they've said a lot of great things. I'll just add maybe one thing. What is the impact that you're seeking to achieve, and how will you measure it? And by impact, I don't mean numbers. I don't mean I want to be a billionaire in X number of years, or balance sheet types of goals. I mean, what is it in society, in your environment, in your country, in your region that you're trying to change, and how will you measure when you've actually changed it or made a dent? And I think at ALU, we drill that a lot into our students in terms of having a mission, but it's really important to have a mission that goes beyond numbers and beyond some of those more financial objectives.
Wonderful. I think we have time for one more question. You pick.
A lady can ask.
2 questions, of course.
Hi guys, a lady can ask. I just want to contribute onto something. Yeah, including what you mentioned on how can investment be brought. Also 2 of their questions as well.
I think as much as we would like investment to come in the country or in the continent, we might as well inspire the youth by understanding that what do you have to do tomorrow, which will also help you into your career, meaning that even if you want to be the best developer or software engineer, make sure that whatever career you choose, it has jobs in 15 years. As you can tell what ChatGPT is doing currently. Also in careers, in terms of sectors, I own a genealogy platform, and the health sector is the future. There is a revolution coming. So whatever you decide, make sure that you know that tomorrow there is a future for it. Don't copy another person so that you become another entrepreneur. Let a lady ask.
I think here, right in front. Yeah.
Hi, so my question is to Daniel and Casey, because you mentioned climate action. So I'm actually co-founding a startup in Kenya. We're still in the early stage, but in the area of climate innovation. So do you really believe like this is the time for, new innovation around climate, or should we focus more on the mitigation strategies? And to just put this into context, actually, as a continent, we contribute negligibly to the global climate change. Yeah? And why we are the most vulnerable population is because of our socioeconomic issues. So should we focus more on that? And yeah, so for me, I'm trying to provide diapers in a sustainable way. Yeah. But when we go to a place, someone is like, why don't you just provide, focus on distributing the existing, diaper brands that are cheaper, instead of, coming up with something that will take a while to catch up. Yeah, so why not, just solve the accessibility issue first? So yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. And also considering that the climate issue is actually very prominent in the urban areas, but actually majority of our population is rural. So yeah, how do you also catalyze, consumer behavior change for such population?
Whoa.
We're ending it with a bang.
Of course, always.
No, that's a great question, and I'm really happy that you asked that. I would say go for it. If there's an opportunity, go for it. Don't follow the carbon market, the climate industry right now. It's very young. It's growing very rapidly. There are a lot of gaps. You can kind of see, and I won't name any specific companies, but people have cut corners, right? And that doesn't mean that you should follow suit. If they're cutting corners and now they're kind of paying some of the price, I would probably say, hey, don't go in that path. Follow what your instinct. I think we said, like, trust your gut, do that. But then also just talk to others in the industry. Like, I'm more than happy. I think we have a networking event. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about this. We're going to the climate summit is happening in Nairobi on September 4th and 6th. I'll be attending there with some of my colleagues. But there's so many new innovations. There's so many new ideas. And I would say go for it. If there's an opportunity, definitely go for it. That whole tech thing that I was talking about before, we thought about that as well. But that's a big opportunity that I think will bring integrity to the market, will better the market, bring quality to the credits that are being generated right now. And there's a huge opportunity as it goes from 2 billion to 1 trillion. There's going to be so many opportunities, so many gaps that we would have to fill. I forgot the second part of the question, but I'm really happy that you asked, and more than happy to connect afterwards.
Thank you for the question. My answer would be the climate change issue is a really big problem. And if not you, then who will? If you have a solution for something, don't postpone it because it's not maybe accessing so many people, because you've already found, it's amazing if you have found a solution for organic diapers for babies. It's amazing if you can actually be able to help them like that. And so I cannot imagine advising you to pause that and then do accessibility instead. And then there's that issue. I think actually what I would advise, if it's possible, because I'm maybe not as experienced so much in the field, is can you learn how to create that solution and then maybe find a way to make it affordable, not maybe cheap, because it's a lot of work to maybe be able to get it, but more affordable, because then it will make more people access it because you made it affordable. So instead of turning your focus to, let me focus on the ones that are being accessed to a lot of people and the supply, how about making sure you do a lot of research and study and whatever you need to make sure that the same product that is solving a big problem can be affordable. So for right now, maybe it's not affordable because it's requiring a lot of effort and you're still small and not a lot of people want it and the materials you're using. But if you change your focus and make sure that, okay, how can I provide such a solution, but still make it affordable? You're solving both problems. You're solving the problem of, the climate change issue, and you're finding a way to make it more accessible because you're finding a way to make it more affordable. Maybe it will come with promotion. Maybe you'll say, you'll find a package. Maybe you'll be able to sell so many diapers and then say, this is going to be, you're going to find a way if you focus your study and your energy and your workforce on that, and then you'll be able to just solve both issues at the same time. But even if you don't, and accessibility is still an issue, I would advise to focus on the climate change issue because I think it's the biggest. And I think you can become that influencer, or you can become that leader in that field. And then with time, when we're catching up and we're realizing that we need to actually work on it, you already have been leading, you already be experienced, you will be far, and people will come to you and seek for the collaboration, the co-creations, because you would have already seen a problem that we will be seeing and firefighting it maybe some years, and you would have been far ahead, and that would give you a lot of advantage. Thank you.
Maybe just quickly on the rural versus urban divide, I think it's actually it could be easy to really educate or to sensitize rural consumers and rural population on climate impact. In fact, in many cases, they are even easier to convince because they see the impact firsthand, right? I mean, if you go to fishermen communities, because they are closer to nature in general, they can see the changes in terms of how seasons are shifting or how levels are shifting. If you go to herders, lack of grazing, lack of water are things that they can notice, and they've been able to witness from generation to generation, even better than urban urban population. So I think that it's more a matter of just finding the right entry point and the right data connections to make, or the right connections in general to make, to the things they're already witnessing, and connecting that to the cause of those changes, which they are already seeing themselves.
We could stay here for hours and hours. There are plenty of questions, but as well, we have food and drinks outside, and we'd like to then continue. And I invite everyone to move to the next stage, the networking event. But before that, one final thanks to our panelists for your time and your answers and your contribution. So thank you all very much as well for coming. And now let's enjoy the networking time. Thanks.